William Carey is often called the father of modern missions. He spent 40 years laboring to bring the good news of Jesus Christ to those in India. And during this time, he faced incredible difficulties and disappointments. Carey didn't see one person give their life to Jesus until he had labored for 7 years. He lost a 5-year-old son to illness. His wife had a mental breakdown due to the loss of their son and the radically different living conditions, and she never recovered. Carey refused to put her in an insane asylum as some recommended, and so he did his best to care for her and try to continue his missionary work at the same time. After 20 years of translating portions of scripture into over a dozen Indian languages, a fire raged through his printing plant and warehouse, and all of his equipment and many of his priceless manuscripts were destroyed. 20 years of labor gone in just a few hours. But Carey persevered. God gave him a great deal of strength to continue his valuable work in India, and a tremendous amount of good has come from it. But his work also took a deep toll on his family. He lost a son. His wife, who didn't want to become a missionary in the first place, was unable to handle the stresses of missionary life and literally lost her mind in the midst of it. Carey's 4 remaining children suffered because of the mental loss of their mother, and Carey's apparent obsession with his missionary work and lack of attention and discipline to his kids. William Carey gives us a small taste of some of the hardships that those on the mission field face. He's also an example that teaches us the tremendous support that missionaries need. We're blessed in our day to have a much better opportunity to strategically support our missionaries. We have a better understanding of what missionaries are facing on the field, and we're better equipped to make sure that they and their families are well cared for and encouraged so that they can continue to do the important work that God has set before them. That's why I'm so encouraged that you've joined us for today's show. We're going to be speaking with a pastor who was a missionary, who supported missionaries through his role at a missionary agency, and who's now helping lead his church to care for the missionaries they support. You're watching One Day Closer, where we're learning together how to use our one day closer to eternity to bring hope and purpose to many. Let's go meet our guest for today. We're here with Pastor George Hege to talk about how we can strategically support missionaries. George, it's so great to have you on the show. It's been such a blessing to have you as my pastor and to see how you and Salem have been supporting missionaries in such powerful ways. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, my privilege. Brennan, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And can you tell me a little bit about just your family and your history, George?
Well, just listening to what your introduction there reminded me that I grew up in Calvary Baptist Church in Altoona, Pennsylvania. Yeah. Strong missions church. And so I grew up going to missions conferences as a young child, meeting missionaries from Africa, the Sahara, and different places, and hearing their stories. And actually, my parents had prayed for a son that they could give to the Lord and in missions. And so I'm kind of the answer to that.
You were the answer to that prayer.
Yeah. And my wife and I went to Lancaster Bible College. We met there, both kind of wanting to pursue the Lord and whatever He called us to do, not really looking. We both were wanting to be single servants to the Lord, and the Lord brought us together. And then we graduated from Lancaster Bible College, went to church in Boyertown, which was a very strong missions church. That church actually had a goal of seeing 50% of their budget go to missions, and got to that. But I wouldn't recommend that for most churches. That's kind of hard to sustain. While we were there, we had 3 children, and we were at that church for about 8 years. Then the Lord called us into missions. Our church hadn't sent any missionaries, and so we were praying that God would raise up missionaries from that church that would go and serve, and we were part of the answer to that prayer. Went to Ecuador. We were planning to go to Colombia, couldn't get a visa to Colombia. My wife, Linda, we've been married now 45 years, so we were 8 years in pastoral ministry, then about 20 years in missions, 11 years in Ecuador, and then 8 years as the director of Liebenzel Mission USA, and then did a church plant in Reading, and now at Salem Bible Church. And we have 3 children. Our youngest son, Brian, lives in Mount Joy, Pennsylvania. He and his wife are graduates of Lancaster Bible College also, and have a little son, Calvin. My daughter, Elizabeth, is actually the director of children's ministry at Salem Bible
Yes,
Church.
she
So it's
is.
fun working with her
Yeah.
and Justin. She's also a Lancaster Bible College graduate. And then my oldest son would have been 44 this year, but he took his own life at 36. He was a helicopter pilot with the Black Hawk in the Army. And we're very sad to lose him, but thankful that he knew Jesus, and we hope to see him again.
Yeah, praise God for that. And just as we heard about William Carey, a reminder that, we're not protected from the brokenness of this world just because, you've been serving God faithfully for decades. So 11 years on the mission field in Ecuador. Tell me a little bit about that.
So we were at this nice church there, and just as Lord, we read a book called Lords of the Earth by Don Richardson about Papua New Guinea and the fact that there was still a need for missionaries to go reach unreached peoples. And we said, hey, we've got 3 healthy children. We're flexible people. We said we'd do whatever. So
most people would say, we've got 3 small children. We're flexible to stay here. So it's interesting that you say it that way.
Well, it was interesting. Every time we had, Linda was pregnant, people say, so do you want a boy or a girl? We said, well, we don't really care. They said, yeah, as long as it's healthy. And we said, yeah, we really don't care. We just want God to give us the grace to deal with whatever child we have. And we have 3 very healthy children. And so we said, hey, let's go into missions until God closes that door. That was kind of our approach. There's a need for those. A lot of people would love to serve at a church in Boyertown, Pennsylvania, who don't want to go in the mountains of Ecuador and Colombia. And so we specifically wanted to go to a tribe that hadn't been reached with the gospel. And the Lord opened the door to work with a Wycliffe missionary from the Pottstown area, Wycliffe Bible translators. This Awa tribe is in Colombia and Ecuador. They kind of cross the border there, the southernmost extension of the Mayan empire. And we had the privilege of going to those who had never heard and expected to have a William Carey thing. Our plan was to spend 4 years learning the language and then to use a new tribes thing called Itau, which kind of goes through the whole history from creation to the crucifixion, resurrection, and gives the whole thing all at one time.
Okay.
And as we were going, this tribe has something called the law of silence, where they don't speak the language to anybody who doesn't already speak the language.
Okay.
So it's a protective thing.
Yeah.
I had learned enough from the Wycliffe guy and little tapes and stuff that I could say, hello, my name's George, I want to learn your language. Well, so I could speak a little bit. And so the ones who wanted to help me would say, well, he already speaks the language. But then they said, well, we'll teach you more if you teach us the Bible. So I just kind of jumped in.
Wait a minute. That doesn't happen very often.
That doesn't happen often.
Well, okay, I guess I can do that for you.
Yeah. And the first, it was Easter 1991. Hiked out there 7 hours, long story, and just teaching these guys with flannel graph, with Moses and the Passover lamb and Jesus. And I'm thinking, man, what were you thinking? These guys have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
At the end of that thing, one of the guys put his hand up and said, I want this Jesus, I want to follow you. And I thought he was making fun of me. I mean, really, I did not think this guy was actually, but God had been preparing his heart.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is when we were getting ready to go out into missions, I would do a thing a lot of times at a prayer meeting or a Sunday evening, on a study of Romans 1 and Romans 10, and just saying, if there's somebody out in the rainforest searching for Jesus, and they don't know who he is, but they're responding to the light that they have.
Yes.
How does God bring them? And it's through a missionary. And that was the point. Romans 10, you have to hear. Somebody's got to tell them. And so for me to be able to be that person who brought the gospel to somebody who was seeking was just incredible. Paulino was his name.
Paulino.
And just a faithful guy. Got baptized, he and his brother and 2 sisters, about 2 years after we got there, and the Lord just continued to slowly grow that church.
Yes.
So now there's about 50 Awa believers in Ecuador, and a couple of missionaries down there with them. Yeah,
that's really exciting, and I look forward to hearing more about that. We're going to take a quick break, but stick with us as we get to hear more about what it looks like to strategically support missionaries.
Watch Lighthouse TV wherever you go. Available on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV. Search Lighthouse TV online on your streaming device or go to our website, lighthousetv.org, for more information.
Welcome back to One Day Closer. We're here with Pastor George Hege talking about how we can strategically support missionaries. George, you were just sharing about some of the unexpected and exciting ways God just opened doors for you to proclaim the gospel when you were in Ecuador. Now talk a little bit about some of the hardships that you experienced and that you've seen other missionaries experience on the field, because it's not easy, and I can understand that. I haven't been there.
It's amazing. I've been in ministry for 45 years now, and almost every person I know in missions, the hardest year of their life is that first year of missions, because the forces of darkness just kind of attack you with all kinds of stuff. So just little, in our language school year, our son got a fish bone stuck in his throat on the night of a hurricane coming through.
Oh, wow.
We had to go to my wife got knocked over. We're out for a bike ride. She got knocked over by dogs and had a sprain, had to go to the chiropractor for several months. And just a lot of things. I think children are a focus. One of the huge hardships for most missionaries, and it was for us, is being away from family. People say, what was the hardest part of being missions? Well, it's being away from your family. And the temptation to just want to get back to things that are normal. Everything is so different. Our church raised money for our little dog to come along with us. We have been missionaries in Nova Scotia just for 4 months. That's a whole nother story, but we got a dog over there. Okay. And we had this dog now for 5 years, and we weren't planning to take the dog because didn't want to spend the money, and our church's Sunday school raised the money. Well, the dog, long story short, ate rat poison 6 days after we got to Ecuador. And we lost the dog.
So so
that was just a really hard thing. And just to press on through those things, knowing that God's called you to this. And we've just seen that in so many, we're in language school again. People say, every missionary we know in Latin America has been robbed. And we're like, that can't be. Like, everybody can't be robbed. But sure enough, we've been robbed. Everybody we know has been robbed. It's just, it's just part of the thing. And sometimes, we know a couple of people who've actually lost their lives through that as well. Just, the violence there and kidnapping and, there's just anything that can distract you from what's going on can come in there. It's
absolutely. And Satan's hard at work to prevent that. And tell me about a missionary family that Salem supports that recently just went through hardship. They lost a child. Yeah,
it's about a year and a half ago, I guess. Family that has an orphanage in Guatemala, and they have a number of children. I think they have, at that point, I think they had 7 or 8 children. So this was number 9. And, just very unexpected. We seemed to be going well, and just had a stillbirth, and just, devastating. And they've got, 4 houses that they're managing and a school and that kind of stuff.
And taking care of all these kids. And then to have one of their own children die.
They have 23 kids in their house.
Wow, 23. Ooh, God bless them.
It was one of the things that a missionary really needs is to have a sending church, a church that can be behind them. And so it was great that our church was able to send Linda and I down the next week and just say, hey, you guys get down, take a week, and just be with this couple, help them. And a lot of it was just making breakfast, making lunch. I had a whole punch list of putting screens in the windows and doing other stuff. And then just to every evening spend time with them, just comforting them, encouraging them, and just coming alongside them. Because you don't tend to have, as a missionary, the church community that you're used to here, because you're trying to create that.
Yes.
And so for modern transportation makes it possible for us to come alongside in those ways. But a lot of churches aren't aware that they can or should do that.
And that's a way that you strategically support your missionaries, because for you to be able to go and in a short period of time, the church already has to be committed to that, right? For the lead pastor to just go. And your experience of losing a son, you could help them in ways that maybe others couldn't. So tell me a little bit, so that's something that Salem has made a priority, is sending the pastors to go encourage the missionaries?
Yeah, we actually, Salem's commitment is to 20% of our annual budget goes to missions. So whatever we put as our budget, 20% gets earmarked for missions, and that goes to missions. But on top of that, in our general budget, we have a missionary shepherding line item. So usually about $5,000 to $6,000 for one of our pastors to go and visit on the field with one of our missionaries, not taking a team, no agenda, no speaking, just to be with them and to encourage them, to get to know them. Because that's the other part. A missionary is constantly pouring out to others. And you can watch now technology allows our missionaries to watch our service if they want to.
Yes.
But it's not the same as having somebody there just to be with you. And so that's something that we're committed to for the missionaries from our church. And God just blessed us to allow us to have, I think at this point we have 6 or 7 couples who are actually from our church on the mission field. So we kind of go through and try to visit one of those. One of the pastors goes to their field every year.
Yes, that's fantastic. I know my first year, all 3 of the pastors went to visit. I said, whoa, this church is really, but I realized it's because of COVID had slowed things down.
Right. Yeah, on top of that, we do mission trips that aren't, so I was supposed to take a team down to Ecuador this year of 15 people from the church. So that year, Pastor Justin had gone to visit missionaries. Pastor Kevin took a team to Guatemala. So that's different on top of the other things. So we try to have one team every year from the church.
And those are your short-term missions, strategically support your long-term missionaries, right? Yeah. So you intentionally do that. That's another way that you're doing that.
Yeah. Every year we try to have a youth team. COVID kind of messed with that, but we have a team of junior high school guys, the kids that go into Jamaica because it's English speaking, and so they don't have to learn a language and they can engage with kids there, and they do a great job. And then every year we send a team either to Ecuador or to Guatemala because we want to build into the missionaries we're already supporting on a regular basis, not just kind of randomly going somewhere.
Makes so much sense.
Yeah.
It really does.
It helps our people to get to know them.
Exactly.
So they really. You can't get I think we have 15 missionary families we support. So not everybody in the church can be connected to all of them. Mm-hmm. But if everybody's connected to one family, that's a win.
I love that. And I think you're really intentional, Salem's really intentional about nurturing that. And tell me a little bit about the pit crews. So what's that like at Salem?
So we also, for missionaries again we're their sending church, we have a group of 3 to 5 couples who are committed to communicating with them on a regular basis. My wife is part of the pit crew for Guatemala, and so every month they have a Zoom call with the family there in Guatemala. Right now we have 2 missionary couples that are coming back from the field for a year of home ministry assignment, and so they need a car to use. One's just come for a few months and need places to stay, so our pit crew gets busy trying to find those for them. If they need a vehicle, we'll try to get a vehicle for them. If they need, just something to furnish a house with. So just keeping up with, what do you need? How can we help you? How can we support you? Sending gifts at Christmas time. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it's just, missionaries send out letters, kind of communications on a regular basis. And sometimes it feels like it's going into a void.
Yes.
Because you don't hear. So people on the pit crew, we ask them, hey, respond. Just let them know that you're reading this so that you're encouraged to know, hey, somebody's paying attention to this.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So it's caring for the missionaries, and it's also allowing those who are part of the church family to really be a part of what God's doing globally and get connected with these families. Yeah. That's great. And we just had at Salem a missions conference. So that's something you do. It lasts an entire month every year. Is that
every
correct?
Other year?
Every other year.
Yeah.
Okay.
So every other year we take 4 weeks and have speakers we have a keynote speaker every Sunday, and then try to have 2 other missionaries that would come in and interview. And then this year we added, because of technology, videos from one of our missionaries on the field. Mm-hmm. So I think we almost got all 15 of our missionaries, people exposed to our missionaries during that time. Mm-hmm. And here again, just trying to figure out how can we keep people engaged so it's not just a list of names on a board. Absolutely. It's not just a budget line item, but these are actually people that you know. Mm-hmm. So this year we had the president of BCM International speak for us because we support them pretty heavily, but all the other missionaries were our people. So, they're not like people that are traveling around just speaking. These are people that we're supporting in missions and just sharing their heart. And, somebody that's involved in college ministry, and we had somebody that's involved in Bible translation ministry, and somebody that's involved in the Bright Hope, crisis pregnancy.
Yes.
So just, a kind of a broad range of things, yeah.
Oh, that's great. And I know I was encouraged through VBS that one of the focuses of VBS was to have the kids raise money for one of the missionaries. That was so powerful. We, as a family, we loved that.
Yeah, and then we also had the Children's Missions Conference.
Yes,
going
coinciding.
So that specifically kind of gearing them onto one country, and then one way that country illustrates how you take the good news of Jesus to people. So make it so kids can connect with that as they're growing up.
Yeah, that's fantastic. George, this has been awesome. Thanks so much for being here and encouraging us and learning how we can better support missionaries. Stay tuned. We're going to be right back to talk about how can we take what we've learned today and apply it to our lives.
Watch Lighthouse TV wherever you go. Available on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV. Search Lighthouse TV online on your streaming device, or go to our website, lighthousetv.org, for more information.
Missionaries are doing an incredibly important work. I love how the Apostle Paul describes it in Romans 10:14 through 17. He essentially says, people will only call on Jesus to save them if they believe in Him. And people will only believe in Him if they've heard of Him. And they'll only hear about Him if someone is sent to tell them. People can only be saved if they've heard the good news about who Jesus is and have believed in Him. There is no other name under heaven given to men by which they can be saved. Missionary work is necessary and important for those who don't know Jesus to be saved. The Apostle Paul says of missionaries, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring the good news. And I say, how beautiful are the prayers and encouraging cards and financial donations of those who are strategically supporting those who are bringing the good news to the nations. Brothers and sisters, God may not be calling you to depart to a foreign nation, but He is calling you to play a part in the spread of His gospel to the nations. Here's some steps that you can take today to begin strategically supporting the missionaries in your life tomorrow. First, choose one missionary or missionary family in your life and begin to pray for them. The best place to start is to ask your church which missionaries they support, pray over the list of those names, and then choose the one that you feel God desires you to support. Oftentimes, God will use those that are maybe in a similar life stage. If you have kids of the same age, that's a great way to choose somebody so that your kids can grow up seeing other children who are on the mission field and be praying for them and connecting with them when they're back in the States. Second, write an encouraging email or card to tell the people that you're supporting that you are praying for them and that you know that what they're doing is hard and you want to encourage them. Third, send them a sacrificial financial gift to support the work God is doing through them. Your heart will follow your treasure. I would encourage you, give up an earthly luxury like eating out for a week or a month or Netflix or buying another something that you don't really need, and instead send that money to that missionary so you can be a part of God's work of bringing His Son Jesus to the nations. Remember, tomorrow is a blank page with nothing yet written on it. Use it to begin intertwining your story in God's story of redemption among the nations. Thank you so much for joining us for One Day Closer, where we're learning together how to use our one day closer to eternity to bring Jesus-infused hope and purpose to many.